Today I'm going to share with you the 8 trading psychology that actually helped me 10x my trading performance. Hi guys, my name is Valen. I've generated over 6 figures in the past few months. I'm not a guru that tries to teach you anything. I'm just a fellow trader who became profitable and I'm trying to share with you what clicked with me. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Alright guys, a lot of people actually think that strategy is the only thing that differentiates a good trader and a bad trader. But in fact, I'm here to tell you that psychology is one of the hardest things to actually master in trading. And just by understanding these two emotions actually makes me 10 times better in trading. One of the reasons for that is actually because strategy is actually really simple and mechanical, where someone can actually learn a strategy and implement it right away. So even if two traders are actually using the same strategy, the outcome can be very, very different. And one of the most important factors for that is actually emotions and psychology in trading. And that is also why in today's video, we're going to discuss about the two emotions that actually makes trading very, very challenging. And by mastering it can actually make us much more profitable trader. So one of the worst advice in trading that someone can actually give you is to trade like a robot. One of the reasons for this is because emotions in humans are actually not binary. It's not a 1 or 0 thing. It's not a yes or no. We humans are unable to actually switch off our emotions like a switch. And by telling someone to trade like a robot, essentially is not helping at all. And the only way we can actually control emotions is actually by understanding it. So our priority as traders is actually to understand, manage, and control our emotions in trading, because emotions and psychology play a huge part in trading itself. One of the two emotions that traders often feel is actually fear. And fear is very real. We as traders often care more about being right than being rich unconsciously. What it means is that, let's say if I have a system that has a 50% win rate for my specific strategy, if I take 100 trades across 3 months, 50 of that are going to be losers and 50 of that are going to be winners. Even objectively, we understand that half of the time we're going to be wrong and half of the time we're going to be right. But in the trade itself, a lot of emotions will come to play. And then we will try to move our stop loss or hold our losers or justify bad trades, even though we are meant to be taken out. And one of the reasons for that is because our ego always wants us to be right for every single trade. And that is exactly what hinders our success and profitability. So one of the methods I use to go about the fear of being wrong is actually to reframe losing trades as data points, but not our identity. Meaning that one losing trade doesn't define me as a bad trader. Instead, the losing trade is just part of the data that we're collecting. So by reframing your perspective will actually help you in so much in not having to be right all the time. And another method is actually to risk really small so your ego actually stays quiet. One of the reasons for that is because money is really emotional, and with huge amount of money that comes into play, our ego will actually be amplified. So the second fear is actually the fear of losing. The fear of losing is actually very real because we often hesitate even though when our system says where we need to take the trade. So even if the chart shows a perfect setup, we often stun and think about all the what ifs. Then we hesitate and skip a A+ setup. This is very damaging to your system because it hinders all the good setups. And one of the examples that I personally have is I used to lose a lot of money trading the stock Tesla. So I lost tens of thousands of dollars trading Tesla last year. So this year, when there is an A+ setup on Tesla, my brain actually remembers the past pain. I remember that I always lose money on Tesla. Then I have all these kinds of different emotions flowing into my brain. Then I hesitate and I'm reluctant to take on the trade for Tesla. And the way to go about that is actually to trust my own statistics and not my emotions, because statistics is actually one of the most objective thing we can actually refer to. And emotions oftentimes are all over the place. So having a very mechanical way of judging whether a trade is good or bad as a reference point is one of the most beneficial things that we can do. As what I said in the beginning of the video, that strategy is actually really simple because it's very mechanical. So based on our strategy and our journal, we will know that whether a trade is good or bad. Then we should take accordingly and use that as a reference. Our emotions can only come to play as intuitions, but not as a judgment of whether we should take a trade or not. The third fear is actually one of the most common fear that you often see on the internet as well, which is FOMO. So in live markets, I always think that this is the banger, this is the trade of the year, this is the next Bitcoin, this is the next Nvidia, this is the next Palantir. I often think that this must be the home run trade that I must take. Then I saw the candle starting to move in the direction that I anticipated. I broke my plan and I chased the price, only then for it to reverse back down and hit my stop loss. So this is one of the most common fear that people actually feel, which is FOMO. And one of the ways that I go about for FOMO is actually to change my perspective from a scarcity mindset to abundance mindset. And what that means is actually to understand that my capital is actually finite, but opportunities in the market are actually infinite. And there are always opportunities every single day, every single week, every single month, and every single year. So it's more so of a survival game rather than a making money game. So as long as we stay in the market long enough, there's always opportunity in the markets. So the fourth fear that I often feel is the fear of not being good enough. So guilty as charged, I myself have done this when I first started out trading. So I often search for the holy grail. I want a strategy that has a 95% win rate, a 4 risk to reward, and often plug in 8 different indicators on my charts. The RSI, the Bollinger Bands, the moving averages, all sort of different things pasting on my charts and often confusing me even more. So I used to think that switching strategy or learning a new strategy on YouTube is actually productive, but it is actually a sign of lack of confidence. What that means, it's I don't have any confidence in my trading system, and that's why I'm hopping from one strategy to another. And the reason for that is also because I have not back tested enough to truly understand that my system actually works. So my strategy to go about that is actually to stick to one specific strategy for at least 100 trades, because 100 trades is good enough to tell you whether your strategy is profitable. And then what I'll do is that I'll analyze my win rate, my risk to reward, and my profit factor. Then I'll have my answer whether this strategy is a good strategy. So the second emotion that we often feel is actually greed. Greed is the opposite of fear. So the first greed is actually greed for more profits. So we are holding a trade for too long. How often when you close out a trade and then you see the trade continue to fly in that direction, then you think to yourself, oh shit, I should have held longer, then I'll make more profits. So the next time when the trade hits your profit target, you try to skip your TP because you wanted more profits, only then for it to come down to break even or even to your stop loss. This happened to me. I'm guilty of having these kinds of emotions as well. So how I go about this is actually to set a take profit and a stop loss limit and forget about the trade and let it play out by its own. This eliminates all kinds of emotions because the moment you enter the trade, you set all the limits and the emotions are yet to kick in, and you already set all the targets and just forget the trade for a whole week. So the second method for not missing out the rally or the runners is actually to implement a partial take profit system into my trading strategy. So I can take 50% off at 2R and then another 25% on 3R and the last 25% on 4R. So what it does is psychologically, you are still part of the trade while taking off a lot of risk off the table. So the next greed is actually the greed for more trades, aka overtrading. A lot of people think that taking more trades is actually good, but taking more trades is actually counterintuitive because in our daily lives, you're often taught to work harder in order to get more. But this kind of mindset is actually counterintuitive in trading because less is actually more in trading. You want to take all the high quality setups, the A plus setups, in order to make more money. But if you are taking random trades, B setups or C setups, what you do is that you tweak your win rate from a 50% to maybe a 40%. And then you lose more confidence and you actually screw up the entire system. So what you want to do is only focus on taking A plus setups that will eventually make you more money. So how I go about this is that I'll set an alert in TradingView. When the price hits my certain target or levels, it will actually notify me and send me a notification. This is so I don't have to stare at the charts for hours and hours because our human brains, once we stare at the chart for too long, we tend to want to take a trade. We try to justify to ourselves to take a trade because we've been sitting in front of the charts for many, many hours and we don't want the time to go to waste. And that is also why we shouldn't stare at the chart. Instead, set your levels, set your alerts, and then just walk away. That will actually prevent you from overtrading. The third greed is actually the greed for faster results, aka over leveraging. A lot of traders are risking too much. They are putting too much money on a single trade because they want to get rich faster, or even doubling down a risk after losing in order to make it back faster. The thing about this is that if you're risking more than you can psychologically take it, what it does is that it screws with your emotions. And when you're in the trade, a lot of greed, a lot of fear will start flowing in your mind. And you will not be able to execute a trade properly or sticking to your stop loss and take profits. So how I go about this is actually to cap my risk at 1 to 2% per trade, and understanding the fact that I want to get rich by compounding my profits, but not over risking my account. Because by over risking your account, you can actually blow away months or years of profits in just one single day. So the last greed is actually one of the most common ones, which is revenge trading, aka being very, very impatient in the market. A lot of traders, they want to take impulsive trade after a loss in order to make it back quick. They are not actually trading the market, but they're actually trading their emotions. Because even though they know that next week they might have an A plus setup that can make back the money, but they don't want to wait for a week. Instead, they want to take the trade now because they must make back their money. And this caused them to take a lot of B plus setup, C plus setup, impulsive trades and lose a lot more money to the market, eventually blow up their account. So how I go about this is actually to implement a 2-loss rule or a max trade rule. So what I'll do is that if I lose 2 trades in a row, what I'll do, I'll stop and take a break, analyze the trades that I've lost. What are the reasons for that? Is that market condition, market sentiment? Is it my strategy issue or whatnot? Or I'll implement a max trade rule. So let's say I'm risking 1% per trade. The max trades I can take at one time is actually 5 trades. So if I lose all 5 of them, the maximum loss I would actually have is actually 5% of my entire account. So these 2 rules actually protect you from all the downsides. So think about it this way. You want to limit your losses at a very minimal level while keeping your upside and an unlimited cap. So you want to truly understand all these 8 emotions, then you are able to master psychology in trading because each one of them actually have the ability to sway our decision and make us lose money in the market. And that is also why it is so important for us to understand all these 8 emotions. If this video did help you in the slightest way possible, please leave a comment, subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, guys.